Hello everybody and welcome to this project where I will take this old phone and give it some new life by replacing the insides of it with modern technology. Why? I haven't figured out yet. But it is a fun thing to do, just for the sake of doing it. I actually did this once before, and when I tell people about that, I got a lot of positive feedback and people want to see how I did it. So that's why I'm gonna record this entire process. I bought this old retro phone many years ago in a flea market, just to play around with it. I put a GSM module in it that gave it its own cell phone number. And I could actually call with it and receive a call from it. It was a bit inconvenient because the sound was quite bad and it takes so long to dial a modern phone number on that spinning disc. So I later just replaced the GSM module with a Raspberry Pi that is located in here. And that can read the dialing disc and registers those numbers into a Python script that I then can do basically whatever I want with. Right now it's controlling my lights. I also have the solenoids here that rings the bells. And then there's this cardle that is just controlled by a modern macro switch. And that's also not hooked up to anything at the moment. And when I fixed the other phone, I thought, why not make a YouTube channel about this to document the process? But I didn't. But now I have a second opportunity to do that, starting with this one from scratch, basically doing the same as I did with my red one. I'm gonna control this number pad, read that into Raspberry Pi. I also want to actually be able to use the speaker and a microphone in this, for example, to control Google Assistant, to call this phone and ask what's the weather like tomorrow and something like that. I also have this little thing here that might be a button. I hope so, because then I can turn that into something fun too, just like I'm gonna do with this button, of course. There is also a counter here that can count numbers. I don't know what it's been counting originally, but it's I can probably do something fun with that too, control that through my Raspberry Pi. I don't really have a good plan what I'm gonna use it all for, but first I'm gonna just try to use all the functions through a Raspberry Pi to be able to actually then use them for something important. This one also has some letters here. That would be fun to create some kind of T9 logic to type in words, like back in the days with text messaging on phones with buttons. But let's start to see what we actually have here to work with. First of all, there's a screw here that should be above ground because of these little feet that are broken. But since they're broken, it's actually resting on the screw, which is putting marks in everything it stands on, which of course is a bad thing, so I'm going to have to replace those with something else. But let's just take a look at inside here and see what we can find. That was quite easy, but it still isn't opening up. Let's continue here then with all the screws I can find. These of course only screws off that thing. And then there is of course this one here in the top. Let's see if this it seems like this is the bell. It actually has a big one on the outside instead of two smaller ones on the inside like the red phone does. There we go. And here it pops. So this is connected to everything with this little wire that is very nicely tucked in here. They have created those little things just for this purpose. And here is a few connectors. If this works in the same way as the other one, it should be fairly simple to read out the values from this dial. We have a negative here that is connected to the yellow one and the gray one. Oh. It's connected to the yellow one and the gray one. I guess that is positive and negative voltage. Yeah, they are not connected. Let's see. The other one, the red phone I have, does not have an open mechanism like this, but I think they work very similar. As soon as I start moving this, this connects those two together. So if I were to let's do that later when I put it back down. So I guess that the black one and the yellow one is now connected, probably the red one and the yellow one too. And then when I release, this one over here pulses. Which would send pulses to the gray one. The same amount as the number I'm dialing here. To show this principle more easily, I've hooked up two LEDs here to the gray and the yellow cable that comes out of this dialing disc. If I start dialing, then both of them light up. But when I release my finger, then one of them starts blinking the same amount of blinks as the number I'm dialing. So in my Raspberry Pi, I have to listen to this yellow cable. When that activates, I start looking at power drop in the other one. It doesn't really show well on camera, but it's actually blinking. It's fast, too fast for the camera, but not fast enough for the Raspberry Pi, so I can actually count the number of blinks on this LED. And that will tell me what number I'm dialing. When I disconnected the dialing disc, I did so off camera, but that revealed the underside of this thing, which is pretty amazing. All these cables connected with screws and small numbers explaining what everything is, even though I don't understand that myself. I also have this little thing down here that I have no idea what this is, but it's the thing that the cable to the dial wrapped around, which I thought was just there for decoration. Maybe it's not. $200 ohm, could it be a resistor maybe? I actually have no idea what this stuff is either. I'm going to replace them anyways, so I don't really care either at this point. Maybe I'll Google it just for fun. The things I care about more here is of course this bell. And that also has this button on top. Let's take a look at what it looks like underneath. There we go. This is just a spring-loaded rod. And this bell just seems to have an opening here, so you can ring it from inside by this. So this seems to be the solenoid that is controlling this arm. I wonder if I can just... I'm pretty sure that this used too much voltage for what I want to do, so I'm going to replace the solenoid with other one. But I wonder if I can reuse this arm as the thing hitting the bell, or if I have to do that with the solenoid. Just look on my other phone. And also this button should... Oh yes, I see. So the button hits here, which activates this. And then the other interesting thing is this counter, of course, that has two incoming connectors here. Wonder what happens if I just throw some voltage onto them. Doesn't really seem to do anything at all. Which is a shame. Should I open this up? Maybe I will regret this, but I don't think there's another way for me to find out what's going on under here. Alright, so I see. So it's also a solenoid running this part. I could probably just replace that with a new one that runs on less power. So that's what I will do. I think that's all when it comes to the body itself. It has a lot of more space than the other one I have, so I can fit a lot more stuff in here. A bigger Raspberry Pi. And because that's been the problem with the other one I have, that it's so little space, so I haven't really been able to fit more than the smallest Raspberry Pi, and barely fit the power to it. And I couldn't get any sound to work on that one because I couldn't fit a sound card. Here I see more hope for that stuff, which is good. The next thing to look at is this. It has this very cool funnel here to amplify the sound, I guess. I wonder how effective it actually is. And the speaker seemed to just lay on top of the connectors like that. Or the microphone, sorry, it's not the speaker. Should be interesting to see if it still works and what quality it has. It looks intact from what I can see. I'm actually gonna put this back just so I don't destroy it accidentally. I wonder what this does. It allows me to pop this off altogether. Probably would if the cable wasn't in there. I don't want to stretch it too long. The first recording I did of this, I wanted to do in just one take, just to show exactly the first thing I saw when I opened the phone and my thought process of it. But by the end of it, I stopped looking at the camera to see what was going on. And I did most of this handset off screen or completely blurred. So I'm actually gonna show this in a second take. Here is a little sheet of metal that is just magnetically hold in place on the speaker, and down here we have two magnets, electromagnets around it, so I guess that those will move up and down. And also in future it will be more prepared and scripted. Now when I know what I'm dealing with, I probably might do some tests before I officially commit to an idea. So these are just placed on top of this little core that is connected to this outer ring, and that for some reason works fine. Should, in theory. There's just some isolation under there. I'm gonna put this back in place. Like that. And then we come to this little piece here in the middle that I hoped was a button I could push. That is unfortunately not the case. It's just for keeping the cables tucked in. Like that. I still hope that I can turn this into a button in some way by... I suppose I would have to grind this part a bit down so it can push in a little bit further and try to find some kind of switch I can put in here. It's not enough to just put some metal here and connect them to, because it needs to get some kind of springiness to push the button up again. Maybe just a switch and a spring would do. I'm gonna try to turn that into a button anyways, because it could be a fun thing to have access to. And that's about it. Some other facts about this phone. I googled it a bit. It comes from Copenhagen Telephone AS, which is the company type. If you look at the button plate, it's spelled I'm not going to try to pronounce this in Danish, but it's not spelled the way they spell it anymore, so that's a bit interesting. It's really old in that way. And also, I haven't found a picture of this phone with this handpiece together, so I would assume that it's been replaced at some point. That it first had another black plastic handpiece, but then it's been... Oh, this actually has some springiness to it now. Interesting. Yeah, maybe I could. Yeah, so it has been replaced. You can also probably tell by the way that this funnel is almost scraping the edge. That's not very good design. So it's probably not like that by default. I also noticed it's missing some letters here. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, no J, and then K. Also missing a Q and a W, which I'm not that surprised by, and also O, but I think it's more common in Denmark and Norway to replace the O with a double A. The Ä and Ö is of course Danish, but I'm just gonna, if I do some kind of logic to type on this, I'm gonna replace those with Swedish Ä and Ö in the software. But that's about it for showing the phone. And the next step is to start doing some fun stuff with it, but that will be a next video.